It's June 22nd, I believe, 2012. Sitting in a extremely moist and humid cemetery park at the little wooden shelter, which I love so much. Second only to sitting next to the stream at the stone table. A quick few notes about Rich Sachs, or Sachs. It's probably Sachs, Richard Sachs, a fellow who I met through Facebook. And I first took note of Rich in a few posts on Urantia. Suddenly I took notice of a few because they just seemed a little bit unreasonable or coming from a position that was unusual. But we have many different types of people on Urantia. So I just happened to notice something. Not long after that, Rich started the Urantia book group on Facebook. And a lot of people took, I don't know a lot, but a few people made public statements of their disapproval of creating a group with that name. You know, there are a lot of Urantia book related groups on Facebook, but most are pretty respectful of just using the word Urantia in some way. And avoiding, you know, the Urantia book or the Urantia Foundation, something like that. Just out of respect, because, you know, I'm not sure if the Urantia Foundation has a Facebook page. Well, certainly they must, but you know, they should have the Urantia book. That should be theirs too. You know, I mean, if nothing more than a pointer to some other Urantia official Facebook page. But in any case, you know, it's fine. You can do that on Facebook. I mean, they don't have the kind of copyright problems, I don't think, that you would have with registering a domain name, let's say. So, started this group. That's nice. And I noticed that I was suddenly subscribed to it. As a matter of fact, I noticed that almost the same number of people that were subscribed to Urantia were suddenly all subscribed to the Urantia book. Now, this could only happen in one way, and that is somebody manually adding people and using a list from another group, and that's exactly what happened. You know, you can, if you're a member of Urantia, you can go in and you can see a list of users. Now, it would have taken some work to do it because, you know, that's a lot of users. You know, at that time, 800. I think Urantia now has over 1,000, but at that time it was 800. And which was not that long ago, a month, two, I don't know, something like that. So, you know, some people took exception to that, and I kind of did too, but I didn't say anything about it. And from that point, Rich started appearing more often, and of course now I'm on this other group, and I also felt it odd that first of all, I felt it odd that he created a group called the Urantia Book. Second of all, I thought it was odd that he just, you know, took a list from another group named Urantia and, you know, used that to launch his group. You know, which is fine. I mean, there's nothing technically wrong with that. It's not illegal to do that. It's, in my opinion, unethical. That's all. And that's just my opinion. And somebody else can agree with my opinion, or they can disagree with it, or they can have a completely different kind of opinion about it. My opinion is it was unethical to basically go get a user list from another group, because I know that Urantia, it was very organic the way it started. I was on pretty early after its creation, and you know, the members were kind of added, one here, one there, friends. You know, it's really nice and organic and tight, and that's the way you get a nice community, is like that. That's why so many things are like buy invite only, because it does tend to help, you know, keep things focused. So okay, so here we have the Urantia book group on Facebook, and Rich Sachs has decided to use an unusual administration strategy, which is basically make everybody administrators. Now, I don't know, frankly, I don't know what the difference of powers are between somebody who creates a group and somebody you make an administrator of a group. I have a feeling that there are a few things that the creator can do that elected administrators can't do, but I'm not sure. But certainly administrators can remove users, they can remove posts, they have a fair amount of power in that with that role. And so that's very unusual. I mean, that's unlike any kind of government that I've ever heard of. I mean, the universe is set up with a lot of checks and balances, according to the Urantia book. And beings are created with different types of roles. It's a mixture of roles, and there are some that are more powerful than others. And, you know, that's the way most systems work. I mean, having everybody an administrator is as absurd as making everybody the president of the United States. You know, if you want to take it all the way out, I mean, at that point, it's you know, really reliant. The system, its functionality or its functionableness would be directly related to the integrity of the people that had been in that group. So, I mean, here we have the Urantia book group. Obviously, a lot of those people are going to come right out of the box, kind of good people, you know, or people that are. We can assume this anyhow, and have some morals and you know, some they wouldn't abuse the power, that kind of power. Now, you know, and just to say a few more things about this, because I feel like it, is that there are people have gone on the Urantia book group and have said, you know, why was I, you know, promoted to an administrator? I don't want to have that kind of responsibility. I don't want to be part of that, you know. So that's, you know, that's a very important thing. I mean, that's confusion. That's another side effect of making everybody an administrator. You know, fun experiment. I mean, yeah, if that's great. You know, I can see how when I mean, my gut feeling about it is like, you know, let me show you. You know, I can run a truly democratic group where everybody's the administrator. You see what I've done here? I've given everyone freedom. And of course, that's exactly what Lucifer's trip was. Well, not exactly, but very, very similar in terms of this, you know, liberty without license, where you have total freedom and basically no restraint, no checks and balances. I mean, Lucifer's trip, in a simplistic way, was simply to say that, you know, I think one of his main problems was with the Ancient of Days, and he didn't like their authority. And he felt that creatures, you know, just by virtue of their being, should not be in a position to be judged by the Ancient of Days. And this idea of making everybody administrators is really very similar, because it's again, it's you know, everybody should have the right to censor everybody else, and everybody should have the right to have power over everyone else. Well, one of the simple, silly things I did to test that system was for just a minute, like a total minute, I removed Rick as an administrator of the Urantia book group. I had the power to remove Rick Sachs himself, which I did. And so it was easy. It was 2 clicks. And then I added him to the group. You know, like I said, within 60 seconds, I had removed him and then added him back. And I mentioned that I had done this on some thread, and he said, you shouldn't have done that. And I said, well, I was just testing the system out. Indeed, it does work. Everybody has that power. I like the idea of an honor system. I know, like, you get out in the country, or when I lived in the States, I always enjoyed being way out in the country where you'd run into a little store and nobody was tending, and there was just say, take what you want and put the money on the counter. That kind of trust is great. And making everybody an administrator of a Facebook group does have a little bit of that in it. This idea of trusting everyone, which I totally agree with. But in terms of actual administration and giving people the power to do that, it's different. It's very much different. That goes beyond the honor system, because putting money on a table, on a counter for something you've taken, is very easy. That's 1 + 1 = 2. You take something, it's worth a certain price, and then you put it there. But administration requires judgment, and it requires situations where things aren't so clearly defined. And therefore, these are situations in which you need, real judges. And that's where you have the best, on Facebook, the best situation is where you have, I'd say 3 or 4 at minimum, if it's a fairly large group, 3 or 4 minimum administrators. And if they have to make an executive decision, they can confer with each other. And that is the proper way, because it isn't a simple equation when you get into, let's say, somebody that's making trouble on a group. Yeah, that seems like a familiar topic. Well, this thing has kind of quickly escalated a bit, where, in my opinion, the group Urantia, that Rick Sachs was flooding it with messages. That's in the internet realms of communities. We call it, flooding a channel, and he was doing that. And while I can see the value of the stimulation that situation can provide, it also can provide a lot of confusion and hurt feelings, and it's somewhat out of protocol. I mean, we can see, if you're on, the people that are on Facebook, most of us are involved with many groups, and we have many friends, and we see a lot of interactions day by day. And it just seems to be, my own open opinion, is that I felt that Rick Sachs was behaving in a way that was most unusual compared to all that I had seen before. However, I have, as an administrator of early bulletin boards, I've run into exactly the same kind of behavior. And it's very difficult to nail down, unless you have a very strict set of rules by which you can judge people for their behavior. But I mean, Rich, was, he's clever enough and smart enough to know how to kind of ride the line. I mean, he has now pushed it out about as far as he can go, in my opinion, in terms of being socially acceptable. Somebody that you'd want to take camping with you. Now, Rick's persona on Facebook may be completely different the way he is in real life. I have no way of knowing. I certainly would welcome a phone call with him if he happens to listen to this and I happen to publish it. Feel free to IM me, Rich, and I'll give you my phone number and we'll arrange a time, or you can give me your phone number and let's have a chat, because I find that one of the most valuable ways to make a connection, and I think it's very, a very good way of, getting maybe clarity on a situation that not only myself but many other people have felt has kind of reached some kind of point of, I don't know what the word is. That's what we're working on here. But let's, without taking too much more time on this, I want to bring it up to like the current situation. As I said, Rich was flooding the Urantia group, in my opinion, based on the common definition of that term on the internet, on internet groups and communities. And some good came out of it, of course. I mean, if you have a lot of good people around, you're going to get good out of almost any even a bad situation. However, Rich was taking it even too far for some of his supporters in terms of calling people names, and in a way, I mean, we can only go by words, but I mean, being condescending and expressing anger, and also putting down people and whatnot, and also in a way just being distractive. So okay, that was happening on the Urantia, and it got to the point where finally, after I think many discussions, amongst the administrators there on that group, and they made a very hard and difficult situation that they knew would not be 100% popular, and they suspended Rich for 30 days, provided he wants to come back and offer an apology and promise to behave himself. I mean, it's really all that any administrator could ask if they have mercy. That would have been exactly my own approach, exactly that. Temporary suspension with the option to come back. So, okay, so that happened, but Rich still had the Urantia book group, as he still does now. But in recent times, he is now, it's claiming on that group, which I could easily just leave, but I do like drama. And I see that he has the same, basic approach. It's a kind of a formula. What he does is he spews off something usually quite irrational and provocative. Some of it's, pretty good. Some of it's, it's not incorrect. And he weaves it in there with things like the A Course in Miracles and blah, 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 whatever he wants to pick and choose. And this will, of course, be, completely, all lowercase, no capitalization, just complete disregard for, any kind of consistency there. Well, no, it is actually, take that back. It's very consistent. No capitalization. I have an issue with that. I'm not a spelling freak, but, sometimes it is nice to be respectful to the English language and help, many of our brothers and sisters who are not native speakers and readers who are part of these Urantia groups, that they, that helps them. I mean, the Urantia book was very carefully written with capitalization, and I think it's out of respect to the same language that they had respect for that I have these feelings. In any case, Rich will start off with his rap. Sometimes they're short, and sometimes he gets long if he's defending himself. Otherwise, they're just kind of like noise signals. And then he follows by just voluminous chunks of copy-paste text from the Urantia book, supporting his whatever it is. And there's nothing wrong with this. But I think where I come to exception with that is that, for instance, calling Jesus a liar for some, just an absurd, kind of illogical way of thinking. Calling people names, telling people to leave, ignoring people's questions, avoiding people's questions. I mean, he answers some, but usually quite angrily. Now, his claim is that he's got this special kind of humor, and that those around him, if they don't get it, that they're just, they're humorous like what Jesus said the Jews were. That would be a recent comment that he would make. What I'd like to say is I think Rich, unless this is some very, some kind of very deep tongue-in-cheek kind of humor, is actually a very malicious type of humor. I feel that Rich is a, he uses sophistry to express himself, and you can look that up, Rich, because I know you do like using a dictionary. I also feel that Rich is very much a charlatan. Very much. I mean, he fits the description perfectly. And he's also a blasphemer. He blasphemies the Word of God, the Urantia book, the word of others. Now, I would say those are my recognitions, and I am not in a position to judge him, but those are my calls on him. I mean, judgment means that I can sentence him to some kind of punishment. If I can judge, I can do that. If I judge, I can set a sentence, but I can't set a sentence, so I'm not judging. I'm just calling what I see. And that's fine, because if I may post this on his group, that might be interesting. But I think that that I think that there are some people that are still posting on the Urantia book group that really are saints in a way, and I'm not thinking of anybody in particular. I see people getting upset, and I see people that are trying to see some humor in it. I see some people that are trying forgiveness and prayer, and people that have just ignored it, and people have walked away from it. And so, there's all those things, and Rich is presenting a little cyclotron. But I would suggest that we are judged by our motives, not by our words, and that it's we should try to help people, and we have. The internet has given us the opportunity to do that in a lot of really good ways, and that our time in life is short, and there are many ways to teach. And I highly recommend trying to use ways that are efficient. And one of the things that makes teaching efficient is love. And it's when you can express love, and people can pick up on your love, that you truly love them, just as our Master loved us, then you can accelerate, the high mission of ministry and providing some kind of support to your fellow trekkers on the journey towards God. And so that's it, that's my evaluation. By their fruits you shall know them. And there's a lot of things I've been feeling this kind of welling up in me, and I've taken a look at it and said, well, it'd be easy just to not say anything. It'd be easy to get angry and jump in and spew a bunch of nonsense. But just tonight I felt that maybe perhaps an audio recording might be a unique way to express myself. And so there you go. Just a comment.